Welcome to episode 53 of Stageworthy. I'm your host, Phil Rickaby. As we head into the month of December, I'm looking back over the first year of Stageworthy and reflecting on all the great people I've spoken to and the great conversations I've had. I love the fact that I've been able to talk to people I know and to ask them about the things that we don't often get to ask each other. Things like why they do theater and what draws them to the work that they do. But even more so, I really love the fact that I've been able to talk to people that I don't know and to learn more about them. I'm really excited for this second year of Stageworthy, and even more than the great conversations I've been able to have, I'm really excited to have you along for the ride, and I hope you'll continue to listen. You can find Stageworthy on Facebook and Twitter at StageworthyPod, and you can find the website at StageworthyPodcast.com. If you like the podcast, I hope you'll subscribe on iTunes or Google Music or whatever podcast app you use and consider leaving a comment or rating. Risha Nanda is a singer and actor in Toronto. Risha is appearing in Her Story Counts' upcoming production Silenced, opening at the Red Sandcastle in Toronto on December 8th and running until December 11th. So, Risha, how long have you been theatering for? How long has that been a thing that you do?
Well, I've been out of school since 2012, so almost 5 years, and that's when I started to pursue it.
Well, is that when you graduated from theater school?
Yeah, that's when I graduated.
But what about before that? Like, what was there? Like, how long have you been doing?
Well, to be honest, I always sang as a kid. So that was kind of my incentive to go into musical theater. Like, I love the idea of singing and telling a story at the same time. So at first I always thought I wanted to be a recording artist. No, not anymore. But, yeah, so that's what kind of motivated me to apply to theater school in Toronto, and I got into Randolph.
Had you, so mostly through the singing, but had you done theater?
Mm-hmm. I had done, in Ottawa I had done a couple things. I remember I did Anne and Gilbert. I was in the ensemble in that. Done the Rocky Horror Picture Show. I had done some stuff in school as well. So
when you were doing the Rocky Horror Show, who did you play?
I was a Phantom.
Okay.
Yeah. So lots of singing and dancing.
Right.
Yes.
I was wondering if you had one of those other
roles. No, yeah. Not quite.
Is that a like? Would you like in terms of like dream shows, even shows that you've done? Are there is there a show that you revisit? Show that you've
I feel like I have an attachment to hair just because we did it in our graduating class, and I love the music.
Okay.
To redo, or to, like, a dream show, honestly, I've made one up in my head, and it would be Slumdog Millionaire, the musical.
Slumdog Musical, the music?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. So that's what I would want to do. I don't know that they've created it, but something kind of like fun and colorful.
You know, everything that's a movie is being turned into a play now.
So I'm hoping. Fingers crossed.
So you grew up in Ottawa? I
grew up in Ottawa.
When you were growing up in Ottawa, were you exposed to a lot of theater, or was it something that you didn't really get to do?
I was exposed to it, but funny enough, when I'm talking about Slumdog Millionaire, the musical, I was exposed to a lot of Bollywood stuff. Okay. So I did a lot of dance competitions, a lot of Indian dance, a lot of performances based on that. And really, a Bollywood movie is a musical.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I was exposed to that, and I like the idea of that. Exposed in school, different plays, different shows, got to see some theater, school teachers take you to see shows as well. Saw the Nutcracker. Well, some Christmas shows. Yeah.
Any non-seasonal shows that you were taken to that you remember?
Trying to remember. Oh, I don't really know. I can't even really remember.
Because there are shows that I know I went to see when I was in high school, and I remember almost none of them.
Yeah, I know. Suddenly I'm like blank.
Yeah, I remember the one show I remember was I did a summer theater school thing once through the school board, and we went to see Cabaret at Stratford.
Oh, wow.
And that was Brent Carver as the MC at that point.
That's pretty awesome.
It was one of those shows where we got on the bus and they had to announce, okay, you may have thought you saw certain acts as part of this thing. But remember, you did not see those. So when your parents ask you about the show, you didn't see those.
Right.
Cabaret's a little... You probably don't want to take theater or like high school students to see cabaret, generally.
Right.
In terms of the Bollywood stuff, that was... so you're watching a lot of movies and things like that.
Right.
Have you looked at, or are there opportunities to take those lessons that you learned when you were younger and put that on the stage these days, or is that something that you're avoiding or that hasn't come up?
In terms of Bollywood?
Yeah, just like that style of stuff.
That style? No, actually it has come up. I auditioned for a musical. It's called, it's a movie. Oh, of course, I can't remember the name suddenly. That's so weird. I talk about it all the time. It'll come to me.
Yeah.
But it's a kind of like American Indian-based movie.
Okay.
And I auditioned for that a couple times. I know that's going to Broadway soon. So it has come up in that, like, I had to sing a couple songs that were a bit Bollywood sounding, or you speak the languages, which in that case it would be Hindi. I had to create my own choreography in the video to send over that was Bollywood. So one of my friends who took a Bollywood class actually helped me with that. And I just find, because there's starting to be a lot more diversity in theater, that they are bringing certain styles, or like there are classes, or people kind of find it an asset.
I definitely think it is. I mean, I was talking with...
Monsoon Wedding.
Monsoon Wedding.
Monsoon Wedding.
Okay.
Yeah,
there
it is.
We knew it would come back.
Yeah.
I was talking with Nina Lee Aquino from Factory, the artistic director of Factory, and their thing this year, they're about diversity this year. And I think all of their shows are by people of color, or people who are basically, women and people of color, things like that.
Right.
Which is important because, I mean, it is a conversation that's happening about the need for diversity. Because, quite frankly, we're seeing a lot of just too many white people on the stage. And as a Caucasian, I'm saying that, and it's true.
Yeah.
Like, the theater is not reflecting the world we live in.
Totally.
And when you were in theater school, was that something that people that was discussed? Was how diverse, like so many white faces on the stage, and that somebody with an Indian background or anything like that, or was it all just like take the world by storm and make it what you wanted?
Well, it wasn't really discussed. I do remember one of my film TV teachers saying something about, you'll have a longer career because you look really young. And he said based on certain ethnicities. He did mention that, but to be honest, it wasn't as open of a conversation. But, I mean, you could feel it sometimes. Yeah. And depending, especially with musical theater specifically, there's not a lot of new musicals coming out. Well, not a ton. So it was weird in terms of when we would have to pick certain material. I would be constantly kind of a little bit pushed to do a little more modern stuff, a little bit more of something that has an R&B tone to it, or not something as traditional, because I think it's not as common for maybe somebody to I wouldn't be cast maybe in Oklahoma as a lead, or so it wasn't as much pushed for.
No.
It wasn't talked about, per se.
One of the things is that I keep thinking, you're saying that, and I keep thinking, fuck, I would love to see an Oklahoma with a completely diverse cast. Yeah. That would be amazing.
That'd be pretty cool, yeah.
But, again, people don't that doesn't come to mind too often. I've seen a bunch of shows recently, and I'm always struck, no matter how good the show is, and I come off stage and I'm like, a lot of white faces on that stage. A lot of white people.
Yeah.
And it just, again, it's one of those things that I wish there was more.
For sure.
More diversity, more. I wish that the theater more matched what I see on the street.
Totally. Well, it was interesting. I know that Cinderella came around here, and the understudy was for Prince Charming. I believe he was Chinese, and people were really upset by it. People were writing letters in to the theater, and it was just so interesting.
I am always astounded by that kind of reaction to stuff. It's really? Do we have to get upset about that?
Right.
About that? People are oh no, that character can't be not white.
Oh, he was great.
I'm sure he was great. Of course he was great.
Yeah. Which was why it was just what?
Yeah.
It was so weird. Yeah.
People are so strange.
Yeah.
when you do you remember what the first show that you did was? Not just out of like Randolph or anything like that, but like can you think back to the first theater that you did when you really sort of caught the bug?
Oh man. Again, the blank.
Of course,
like
right?
You're asking me, and I'm like, I don't know. I do theater?
Yeah.
I have no idea. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I can't even.
What's the first thing that you do remember doing?
It always leads back to like the Bollywood. I'm just that's as far back as I can remember. Always doing performances with people.
Yeah.
And like being in shows, like holidays, events, just dancing around and performing all the time.
Was there anything particular that drew you to Randolph as a school as opposed to other schools? Did you even look at other schools?
It was just the option at the time. One of my friends was going, and she told me about it. And they were holding last-minute auditions, and I auditioned. And I'm happy I did. I mean, I feel like it's pretty well-rounded in terms of acting, dance, and singing. And I'm glad. I mean, everybody has their own kind of thing with each school, but I was happy with the experience.
Cool.
And I also went when I was 23, which I think helps. I wasn't
that
right
does
out of
help.
high school.
That does help. I went to theater school right out of high school, and I kind of wish I'd taken a couple of years to not do that. But I was like chomping at the bit to do the thing, you know?
Exactly.
Did you find that your attitude going in was different because you had a couple of years on some of your classmates? Or?
Yeah, I think so. Well, because I mean, I had gone to university before that. I had worked in the bank for a year. Then I decided not to do it. Wasn't for me. And then I applied to theater school. So there was a bit of like life that had happened before that. And I think that when you make that choice in that way, you are maybe a bit more thick-skinned, but also a bit more motivated, or like you don't get discouraged as easily.
Well, it's interesting because if you think about it, if you've never actually if you haven't had a quote-unquote real job and you don't know what that's like, and you haven't decided what the arts mean to you, if it's just what you've always done, then I think it might be easier to burn out, easier to not be as dedicated to it as if you didn't have it.
Yeah, and there was always that mentality of like, hey, you left your good paying job to be here, so you better do this. You know what I mean? And like, if you get rejected, well, you wanted it. You have to keep kind of pushing through, and it kind of helped. Yeah. Like anytime you leave an audition room, anything happens, you're like, nope, I'd rather this life than any other one. Yeah. It helps.
It's interesting that you put it like that because I think like one of the mistakes that I made early on was like not like really, I didn't really put a whole lot into it because it was like, it's a thing. Yeah. And I think that if I'd done sort of what you'd done and like had a bit of work before going into it, that might have been, I might have like, because now I put a lot more, even now I work a day job and I do theater. So it's like, I put more into it now than I did when I was just at a theater school.
Totally.
What, can you tell me about the work that you've done since Randolph?
Sure. Done some theater, done some film and TV, done some commercials. One of the first things I booked was a commercial. It was a Bud Light commercial for the Super Bowl, which was super fun. We just kind of had a good time and they filmed us. I did a commercial for the Pan Am Games, which was really nice and interesting. Lots of interesting people. I did the Rocky Horror Picture Show again. I did a play called Skin by Dennis Foon, which is a Vancouver playwright. I did some children's theater. Yep, all gotta do that. I did, I'm trying to think here, I just filmed on the show Incorporated and another show called Ransom. And I'm trying to think here. Yeah. You know what? I haven't had the opportunity, funny enough, to be in as many musicals as I would have wanted to.
Interesting.
Yeah, so it goes a lot to like theater and plays or like film and TV.
Have you just not seen, have there not been, because I know that in Toronto...
Oh, I audition all the time for musicals, all the time. Yeah.
It's interesting because when I think about musicals in Toronto, there's certain levels of it. There's all the Mervish stuff. Yeah. And then there's... occasionally during Fringe, there's some, and there's like some indie or amateur groups. But it's hard because there's so many actors in this city,
right?
That and there's so few shows produced here. Like a lot of the shows that come through are like touring through rather than produced here, at least in the large houses.
Yeah.
Do you have the self-producing bug at all, or are you just wanting to just get cast and do the work and not have to worry about that stuff?
It's interesting. I think that as time goes by, we're kind of there's not a lot of new work being created, so you're like, well, I have to do it.
Yeah.
I just gotta do it. And actually, funny enough, the show that I'm doing right now with Her Story Counts, I'm not producing, but I did write my own piece, and so did 6 other women. And I kind of took it on to have that experience and to see if I could and wanted to do it. So, the writing aspect, creating, and learning all these things. And in truth, yes, I would, and I would love to have the means to kind of go further and do stuff. But at the same time, I love telling other people's stories.
Right, yeah.
So, and it's really funny because the one challenge with this show was in creating your own piece. Sometimes it's so weird because it's so personal to you. You have a hard time connecting to it almost. It's like you've dealt with something, you've moved on, and then you're like, oh. Whereas, and in somebody else's piece, you bring experiences from your life and you can connect to it. It's just the strangest thing.
It is a very strange thing. And it's almost like because you're so close to it, you almost... you've dealt with it, quote unquote, and now somebody's asking you to you're asking yourself to deal with it again. Yeah. But you don't really want to do that. It's so personal. Yeah. It's different. It's one thing to take something that somebody else wrote and put yourself into it than to take your story and put you into it again.
Exactly. So, I mean, would I want to? Yes. What I would prefer is to audition and kind of just get cast.
Yeah, of course. I mean, that's
the dream.
It is the dream. But the thing is, I've been doing this podcast for about a year now, and I've spoken to 2 people who have that career.
Right.
In the entire time I've been doing this, in terms of theater people, only 2 people, and most people are doing indie work. They're finding stuff. They're making stuff happen on their own. Sometimes it's not that they are they're not producing, but they're finding people. They're getting around people who are
it's nice.
Forming small groups around them, which I think is sort of you sort of get that same sort of experience rather than being the person to do all of the work. But at a certain point, I think sometimes we end up with sort of a fuck it mentality. You've got to be well, I want to do something, so fuck it. I'm going to have to do it myself.
Yeah. Definitely.
Yeah. In terms of, can we talk about Silenced?
Yeah.
What is? I mean, Silenced opens on
December 8th.
December 8th.
Yes.
So this is going to go up on Tuesday, so 2 days from now, so that we are.
So the podcast.
This podcast.
Oh, I thought you meant the show.
No. The show's going to happen on December 8th, and this podcast is going to go on. I'm going to put that up just before that show goes out.
Okay.
I think I'm going to put it out through the schedule today, so that can get out in time for your show.
Fun.
So what is Silenced?
Silenced. Well, it's with a company called Her Story Counts, and basically it's a platform for diverse women, essentially. And this cast, it's 7 of us, and all 7 of us have written stories that have happened in our lives that we have felt that have made us at some point feel silenced. So, there's so many different topics. There's, somebody who, she's gay, or somebody who has a learning disability. I talk about something with sexuality. And some people talk about their experiences with their family. And it's just really nice because what this company has done is kind of opened up this space for women to speak and tell their stories, and which is really nice and empowering, and it's such a great group of women, but also it's for everybody else to be able to relate. So everybody who comes to see the show, it's kind of all right, this was my life, or it wasn't, or I understand, or it's just kind of what theater's about, right? Yeah. So it's really amazing. Yeah, and it's this experience that I've never really had with any company before. It's just very loving and kind, and just, it's a good group of people.
What was it like having to write your own story?
It was, at first, it was a lot of ups and downs. At first, I was like, yes, I just wrote a bunch of stuff. And then you realize, like, you have to get a bit technical about things or be in the present about things. Because sometimes if you're not a writer, at least for me, I didn't realize that I'm almost writing how I speak, which is okay sometimes, but sometimes it doesn't really make sense. So I got to learn a lot in terms of how you write, which actually kind of helps with auditions.
Yeah.
Because now when I look at a script, I'm like, oh, right, I can remember things a bit better because I'm like, this is how things are kind of written technically. And then I had some time where I was like, well, I can't do this because nothing makes sense. And I was just like, this is not a story. And yeah, with the help of, you know, my director and the dramaturg, my friend actually, Evangelia, and just everybody, it was just like, we kind of just created together as well, which is really nice. So a lot of ups and downs, I'd say.
I think that's writing in general, a lot of ups and downs. Like, for example, for me, if I write the first time through, I'm like, oh, so awesome. Like, I'm getting it written. And then you sit down and you read it and you're like, oh.
Yeah.
Okay. No. And the interesting thing is it took me a long time to be able to get to the point where I could actually take something from that first draft to something else, because my first instinct after writing it and then reading it would be, well, that's garbage. And then I would toss it. And it was like later on that I realized that, no, that's part of it.
Exactly.
When you write it the first time, it's supposed to suck. Totally, like, it's supposed to have lots of problems. And then you fix it.
Yeah, it's kind of just like getting all your ideas out on a piece of paper. It's funny because we did this one exercise where some of us were feeling a bit like, okay, we don't know what we're doing. So she's like, okay, we're just going to like do an exercise. You have like 1 minute to just write in as much detail as possible something that happened. And we all kind of did it. And it was just really great. And funny enough, I think every single one of us used those pieces in our story, which was so funny. We're just like, oh, this is great.
Was it when there's a time limit, you can't edit yourself? Do you think that you were freer with it that way?
Freer, and just like kind of just like spitting it out through your hands, and also the detail. We had to keep in mind detail, which really paints pictures. And sometimes we forget that like writers really have to, like, their writing is beautiful. Like they put so much detail into it. You don't realize it until you have to do it. Yeah. Right? So, yeah.
It's interesting because I was on that front when I was getting ready to perform my solo show this summer. My director was like, no, this is too poetic. This is wrong for this particular piece. Because there were parts of it that were like really straightforward, and parts of it where I've been like, oh, I need to paint like more of a picture and like do this sort of thing. He was like, wrong for the character. You have to take out all of that poetic stuff. And I was like, well, I like the poetic stuff.
It's beautiful.
It was beautiful. And he said, well, if you love it, then we need to take it out because you're too close to it.
Too attached.
Oh, it was so difficult to kill your babies.
Yeah.
What was, like, taking this stuff, like taking your story and then rehearsing it? What is that like?
Okay, that was especially difficult for me. So I feel like once we got comfortable with the writing, I was like, I'm a writer. Like, just like super, just like you're so comfortable and you're doing it, and then it was like, cool. Now we're getting on our feet, and I'm like, what? Like, I think some of us really felt that way. We were like, but we just got the writing part down, and to have to detach yourself as a writer and become an actor can be difficult because. Oh, it's so hard to explain.
There are two different activities, two different parts of the brain.
Yeah, and it's just like, now I had to almost look at it with fresh eyes. And again, one, you're attached to the writing. Two, you're attached to the story because it's yours. And then you're like, also so detached because it's something that has happened that is no longer your life.
Yeah.
Or, you know, that you're dealing with, or whatever it is, that it was just the strangest feeling. On the one hand, you're so attached, and on the other, you're like, I don't have anything to do with this piece. It's just so funny. And, like, then I felt like I was, like, back in that place again where you're just, like, want to throw it across the room, and you're like, I can't do this.
I found it really hard to, like, ask the kind of questions that an actor's supposed to ask when you wrote it.
Because I'm like, well, shouldn't I already know?
Yeah.
It's just so weird.
Yeah, but also, like, I would be like, I would forgive myself stuff that I would never forgive in another piece.
Right.
I would like, well, that's happening just because it is. You know, I'm doing that because I need, like, and I had to be really pushed to be like, no, find the reason why and all that stuff.
That's
it's
interesting.
So hard.
I might be doing that because I'm like, well, it's just my life. That's just what happened kind of thing, right? That you're almost not, like, approaching it as a an actor.
But it's difficult to do because like we said, that writer part and that actor part are different parts of the brain.
Yeah.
Have you I'm curious, and I know your director isn't here, but I'm curious how you direct other people's stories.
She's very that's like a whole different kind of person also, because she's very she's a great director. She sees things and you're like, wow, that's beautiful. But she also has to really keep us in mind in terms of, is that okay with you? So she'll give a direction, and there's certain things that are technical that it's like, okay, that's the direction. This is how we want the piece to be seen. And it is theater at the end of the day. But, sometimes if it's something emotional, there's been a lot of check-ins, a lot of, okay, maybe somebody in the piece is someone that's doesn't feel the safest to you.
Right.
Look at your co-actor. It's not them. Or asking them certain questions like, are you okay with this? Can we do this? What do you need from me? There's a lot of that in this, because the truth is, it is people's lives, and they're kind of revisiting things that might be a bit traumatic. So she has to really approach it with a lot of compassion.
Is your piece a monologue, or are there other people in it with you?
There's other people in it. Actually, mine especially has a bunch of other people in it. Yeah, and some pieces are a bit more just them, but we all kind of participate in each other's, which is nice.
That is good.
Yeah.
Because then you have each other to help out and to be part of it with you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Can you think of one thing that you've learned through this process?
One thing I have learned. I feel like I've learned so many things.
You don't have to keep it to one. We can break that rule.
Right. Of course, again, blank. I've learned everything, but nothing. No, I think, one, just the appreciation for writers, for one. I'm just like, what is even happening? That, the detaching yourself and I've learned so much, to be honest. I've learned so much about other people and because there's a lot of emotions in this environment as well. So how we handle things, how we work with each other. I've also learned to try to really separate personal stuff with professionalism, because sometimes, we want to bring that into the room because it is our stories, and we get a bit but this is my story, and this is what's happening, and this is how I'm feeling, and it's like, okay, sometimes we have to remember that this is the work. Right. And it's going to be on stage, and also learn that it's not necessarily about us, right? It's about everybody else watching. Yeah. So there's also, the technical stuff too, and also still learning how to emotionally engage with a piece that is mine, which is so strange.
It is really strange.
Yeah, so I feel like as a person, learning a lot. Yeah. And also professionally, seeing other people write things and seeing what they created, I was like, wow. Yeah. It's amazing.
Well, that thing about that you were mentioning about the separation between the personal and the professional, I think that's such an important lesson for an actor to learn, is how to leave that stuff in the room, and how to that separation, so that you're not taking too much when you leave the rehearsal or performance.
Right, which is so strange, because part of it is putting them together, right? That's the whole thing, with performance. People are like, you're an actor, you're just faking. And I'm like, no, you have to actually feel it and believe it and be it. Yeah. So it's so strange. On the one hand, you're just it. And on the other hand, you're like, all right, you better separate this now.
Yeah.
So,
well, you have to do that for your own sanity sometimes.
For sure. Yeah.
What was the most, we're talking about the things that you learned through this, what's been the most, aside from the separation, is there something that's been the most difficult thing of this whole process?
I think everybody works at their own pace, and because everyone's creating their own stuff, we're not necessarily, there is a timeline, but there isn't either. So I did have to learn how to kind of move at different paces with different people, which was interesting, because sometimes I find in certain shows it's so technical and so time limited, and so it's by this we do this we do this we do this. So it's very just okay, cool. Yeah. But it's a little bit of a different process in that sense, and difficult Honestly, difficult to revisit certain things.
Of course, yeah.
I'd say.
Yeah.
Like, sometimes I'm like, oh, I didn't even know that still bothered me. Or, I didn't know that, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
I do.
it's almost just become a story that you tell. You know that the story has made you into something, but it's just a story now.
Yeah.
And then you revisit and you're like, oh, no.
Well, because when you're
Still there.
when you're telling the story, you have a separation. It's like, this is
Totally.
the story, but now you have to invest in it as an actor, which is a
Yeah.
completely different thing.
Yeah.
Has it been hard to, like, re-deal with that stuff, or to, like, has learning that it still bothered you been difficult, or?
Honestly, it's been amazing.
Okay.
I feel like right now where I'm at in my life, there's a lot of different things that are happening that are kind of like helping bring things out.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like it's also reminding me that just because I've dealt with something doesn't mean I have to kind of completely push it away.
Right.
So I think sometimes when we do that, it's like, oh, how much have we dealt with and how much have we suppressed? And because at the end of the day, like, it depends when things happen in your life, but, like, you know, you think about things like high school, for example. In hindsight, you're like, ugh, like, doesn't matter
Yeah,
one
of course,
bit.
yeah.
But the things and the way you felt and your hormones are everywhere that you're just like, certain things you see or can happen and you're like so affected by it. I think, and in life, like for anybody, those things continuously come up.
Mm-hmm.
So, what was the question? I totally forgot.
It doesn't even matter. I mean, I think the question was about what's been the most difficult thing.
Right.
But I mean, really, I think that you answered it.
Yeah. Getting off track.
Well, I mean, so now you're sort of like in the home stretch on this project. It's opening in a couple of weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And now, so you've been going from being the writer to the actor, and now you're starting to head into production. Mm-hmm. Is it, like, what does it feel like being about to present, like, your own story on stage?
Almost not real. Like, I'm just like, are we actually doing this? Like, we weren't just hanging out and, like, creating work. And it's so interesting. It's, like, a whole different world than, you know, some other things that I've done. A bit, honestly, it's weird. Like, I find myself to be open and I can talk about things. But this feels a bit like I'm, like, I feel a bit exposed. Like, I'm like, everyone's gonna know.
Yeah.
Or, you know?
Well, yeah.
It's so interesting, and it's yours, 100%. Like, this is every single thing that has happened to you.
Yeah.
And it's, again, I could tell it to anybody, but to actually act it and be there again, and all the things that were said and what kind of happened, it's really interesting.
Yeah.
So I have to kind of keep reminding myself again that it's not about me per se. You know, it's about the story and telling it, and having, you know, maybe other people being able to relate to it. And that's really nice.
The thing that I would say I think that you've got going for you is other people who are going through the same thing. Because I know, like, performing something that I wrote, especially the piece I did in the summer, that for the day I was going to perform it, I thought I was going to throw up that whole day.
Yeah.
I thought, and just before, like that half hour before, I thought, this is it. This is where I just vomit before this thing starts. Because it was just me. There was nobody else. So I didn't have anybody else to, like, hold on to. So you've got at least got that going for you, that everybody is probably going to be feeling that same way before they have to do this.
Exactly, and we always have to remember that. Like, people are thinking about themselves, not anybody else. So, it's a whole different, like, thing. It's like, I don't find myself getting nervous in this way when I do other stuff.
No, it's different when you put yourself into it in a way that it's not when somebody just hands you a script and you're like, oh, these are the lines I say and somebody else wrote them. It's completely different when you're saying, these are the lines I'm saying, oh, and I wrote them, so that means something.
And it's fully my life.
That's a bit freaky, but do you have a plan for that first day? Like, what you want to do to get ready for that first performance? Or I
think all of the standard stuff you do, physical warm-up, vocal warm-up, try and get some sleep if I can. Be hydrated. But I think in terms of, that's the thing that's so nice about this company is when you were saying it, I was like, the women, like, we're just going to be there for each other. It's kind of like there's so much support that you feel safe.
That's so good.
Doing it.
Yeah.
So I was like, well, we're just going to love each other and we're just going to do it.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's really good.
Yeah, it's nice.
How long does Silence run for?
It's only until December 8th. What? No, December 11th.
Okay, so you get like
December 8th until the 11th. Yeah,
like 1 week basically, like just a few days.
Yeah, like it's not very long.
Okay.
You're like, what?
I know, because I was like, wait, only December 8th, so what performance? Is it? Where is it performing?
It's going to be at the Red Sandcastle
Oh,
Theater.
the Red Sandcastle.
Yes.
I have such a soft spot for the Red Sandcastle.
Yeah. It's going to be intimate.
Well, I mean, that's one of the things about that space is that is one of the most intimate spaces in this city.
Yeah.
It's a very like loving space because of it, you know. So it's kind of exciting that way.
Yes.
So you've got this show, and then after Silence. Sorry, I'm just hip
worries.
checking you here.
It's these chairs.
We're on these swivel chairs that just sort of like move back and forth.
Yeah.
You said that you were heading off to Vancouver?
I am going to Vancouver in January. I'm doing a show with the Arts Club, and it's an original play called Men in White. Yep.
Have you been to Vancouver before?
I've been to Vancouver, but I've only spent like a week there for like a wedding. So doing a lot of family stuff.
Right.
I mean, I've seen the city, but I think the last time I was properly there, probably I was 15, and I'm 29 now. So, yeah.
You haven't been there in a while.
It's been some time. Yeah. So.
And how long are you going to be there for?
Until March 14th.
That is a good long time to be in Vancouver.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah. Have you traveled for theater before? Have you gone from home?
I did. I went to Thunder Bay. I did last year. I was doing shows with Magnus Theater, so I did that, which was amazing because it's such a different place.
Yeah.
Like, wow, it's different.
What's different about it?
I found it just, I guess, like when you're walking the streets in Toronto, it's very busy, very multicultural, not as segregated in a main city, I'd say, which I found down in Thunder Bay it was.
Okay.
Their politics is a bit, like, off-putting a little bit. The treatment towards the Indigenous community is really awful. It was just so weird, and I've never really been in a position where people would just look at me and they just didn't understand what I was. Like, they didn't know where to place me. It was so strange.
I find it almost painful that people like felt that like they were walking down the street looking at you and feeling like they have to place you somewhere.
Oh, yeah.
Instead of just being like, there is a person.
Oh,
they had to be like, this person is a whatever.
Yeah.
That's such a strange thing for me.
Yeah.
How long were you in Thunder Bay for?
That was also 2 months.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think March to May, and it was amazing. And again, doing the show was amazing. The people were amazing, but what I loved, obviously, about when you travel anywhere is you get to experience the places.
Yes,
so I got to kind of see how people live, and I got to visit some reserves, which is really nice. I got to go. My director had a camp out there. They call cottages camps.
Okay.
So we were out there on the what is it called? That thing that looks like a face. It's the big thing in Thunder Bay.
Yeah.
And it's by the water.
Yeah.
We got to go there. So the nature aspect of it was like unreal. It's really beautiful out there.
One of the things that I've always liked about traveling, and when I've traveled for theater, I've really only been like in a place for like 2 weeks.
Right.
Ish for Fringe. But it's like seeing a city in a different way because you're there working.
Living.
You're living.
Yeah.
Like, you're not just doing tourist stuff. You're like, this is, 3 days in, this is a routine. This is what a routine feels like in this city, which is kind of fun.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Yeah. So Vancouver. And anything lined up after that?
Not yet. Thinking of taking a trip somewhere.
Yeah.
Really.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, in terms of things that you want to do, is there... Like, I know it's so hard as an actor being like, people are like, what's your 5-year plan? And you're like,
what?
I'm like, a 5-year plan.
Yeah.
Like, I want to be working.
You're like, hopefully working.
Yeah.
That's always the plan.
Yeah. In terms of, are there projects that it's not even a question you can really ask to an actor. Sometimes there are people who are like, have productions that they have on the back burner or like stuff they're working on. Have you fringed? Have you done that sort
I've
of
not.
thing?
I've not, actually. Yeah. I mean, I've gone to see fringe shows. Yeah. No, I have not been in the fringe festival.
Is it something that you've... I guess the opportunity just hasn't come up.
No, it just hasn't been the case yet. So, yeah.
Well, I mean, yeah, I could go on and on about the fringe, but, and anybody who listens to this podcast knows that very well. What is... in terms of this show, Silenced, do you, after writing, is writing something that you're interested in doing more of, or are you like, this was a one-time thing, and I don't think I need to do that anymore?
You know what? I was thinking about it the other day because I was like, no, and then I was like, you know what? I think I would, but I don't know that I would ever want to write about me again.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I would want to write stories and take from maybe other experience, maybe parts of like my life and like other people's lives or stories, and kind of create something fictional.
The interesting thing is, like, because in a way, when you're writing, it's always you.
Totally.
But, But it's fictionalized in such a way that nobody could really look at it and say, this is a story about you.
Yeah.
I think I always find that once I've written a thing, then I want to write another thing.
Yeah.
So like stuff starts coming up. Have you had that urge since you wrote this thing to pick up your pen and start writing another thing, or?
Maybe not write another thing, but I always think of quotes, and I'm like, I always have this joke, I'm like, if in this episode I would say this, in this episode I would do this, so like find myself wanting to write down like quotes and things that are said that I'm like, that's amazing. But
have you written them down?
Well, some like if I don't have anything, then I don't. But
you should write them all down, because I have a folder of quotes that I use.
Really?
Yeah, pretty frequently actually. Just to every so often, like, that is a great quote. I have to use that sometime.
Yeah, no, 100%.
I haven't used any of them yet, but I feel like it's important to write them down.
Totally.
I'm just trying to think about things that I wanted to ask you about. I mean, the silence thing was like the major thing that I really wanted to talk to you about. Yeah. Now, one of the things that I don't get to talk to people about too often, because we don't like to talk about it in theater, is those jobs that we do when we're not acting.
Oh,
right?
yes.
And usually when people are talking to me, we're talking about things that we're working on and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But you and I worked as ushers at the Edinburgh Rivers Theatre.
Yeah.
How did you get that job?
You know what? I feel like the friend actually who told me about Randolph was the friend who told me about this job, because she knew somebody who worked there at the time. So that's how I got it out of theater school, actually. And it has been so great. Like, it's funny that you said, like, people don't like to talk about it, but I was having this discussion with somebody recently, and I was like, you know what? I feel like I will always talk about this job, because it literally is what allows me to be able to perform when I'm not performing. Yeah. It pays my bills. And it's also great because as an usher, bartender, whatever, you're in this environment where you're constantly around it, that I don't get taken away from it. So while being there, you're just like, oh, I want this, and it kind of motivates you. And I know some people can get discouraged, but what it does for me is I'm just like, yep, this is where I need to be.
One of the things that I always found about it was the ability, like, you get to see a show so many times.
Yeah.
That you start to learn about how to do a show in the long term.
100%.
Like, there are shows that we've seen that we're running for like 6 months or longer. Yeah. And thinking about, like, how do you keep that alive for that long.
Exactly.
And so learning that was always like this fascinating thing.
You do learn a lot.
Yeah.
And you're in the realm of the work. You're constantly either seeing your friends on stage or you're meeting people. I've met so many actors working there, and they've also like gotten gigs from working there or, met people who were like, hey, I know this. Or so it's just a great environment to be in. Yeah. And it's easy. It's an easy job.
It's mostly easy.
Mostly.
Everybody has those challenging moments. But, it's mostly an easy job. Yeah. And you just mostly have to stand there and smile it.
In pain. No, but no, it's
it depends on your shoes whether you're in pain or not.
That's true. That's my own fault. Yeah. Well, Yeah.
That wasn't a dig.
Yeah. I'm like, okay, it's me.
No.
Yeah, no, it's good. It really, I think, has helped. And yeah, you're right, exactly. Sometimes you're watching the shows, and right now, Matilda is on at the Ed Mirvish. And just like watching it, and I'm not even in the house as much as other people, but I know the show well, and sometimes you're just like, okay, I see that they changed this, or, oh, this is what they're doing that's a bit different, or how you're keeping your energy kind of going.
Yeah.
And it's amazing. You learn a lot, and you see
really
the way people
do.
perform. Watching,
you really do.
Right?
The downside is how the show becomes like the soundtrack to your life.
Oh, I wake up with all the songs in my head.
Yeah.
I'm singing it 24/7.
And it's always a song, like you'll wake up with a song, and it's not like that whole song. It'll be like
a line,
a phrase, or one line that just like loops over and over in your brain.
Yep, I wake up with "My Mommy Says I'm a Miracle."
Okay,
every day, and I'm like, all right.
Yes, now things have to change.
Thank you.
Yeah. Moving on.
Yeah.
And you've worked at both the Panasonic and
yes,
and
Mirvish,
and the Mirvish. Different vibes at both theaters.
Very different.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
But different size stages, different audiences, kind of. Like the people who go to the Panasonic are a little more laid back than people who go to a little more casual than the people who go to the Mirvish theater.
Yeah, and sometimes the shows that are put there are not necessarily like musicals. So a lot of the people who are coming to see them are not necessarily like avid theater goers. It's anybody else.
Yeah.
So you see all kinds of people kind of coming to the Panasonic, which is also really fun.
That's kind of fun. Like when people get their first like theater experience, it's not like a kid show that they were taken to when they were 5.
Yeah, and it's funny. Like sometimes the questions you get, and you're like, "What?"
Yeah.
You're like, but yeah, you forget. Like, oh, right.
Right. You don't know this.
You don't know here. Yeah.
Which is kind of fun.
Yeah.
So I'm basically at the end of our time. I want to thank you so much for coming or for doing this, and we'll get this online so we can get some talk about Silenced.
Yeah, it would be great if people came out to see it. Just
awesome.
Good stuff.
Awesome. I'm looking forward to it.